we'll get started. So welcome everyone to the May agenda briefing. Councillors, staff and members of the community in the gallery, all welcome, and those watching online. Disclaimer, the agenda briefing sessions are used to inform councillors on the items of business to be presented and discussed at the forthcoming ordinary council meeting. These meetings are open to members of the public who may request to present a deputation to council relating to an item on the agenda. No decisions are made at these meetings, although councillors can request additional information or alternative wording be provided to allow for motions to be prepared for consideration at the forthcoming ordinary council meeting. Any statement regarding any planning or development application made during an agenda briefing session is not to be taken as notice of approval. Anyone who has an application lodged with the Shire must obtain and should only rely on written confirmation of the outcome of the application and any conditions attached to the decision made by council. An audio and visual record will be made by means of live streaming of these proceedings and uploaded to the Shire's YouTube page for viewing. Acknowledgement of country. The Shire of Harvey acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their cultures, and to elders and emerging elders both past and present. Record of apologies and leave of absence. I've received a request for leave from Councillor Carboni. That's the only one. Thank you. Declarations of members and officers' personal interests. Some have already been sent through on the screen. I will go around the room. Councillor Holly.
Yes, with the oval, I'll take a proximity of that, and I'll be leaving the chambers. And also with the awards, I know everyone bar the one, so I'll be staying in and
that's
it on its merits.
An impartiality.
An impartiality, that's probably, what did I say?
That's fine.
No, I didn't.
Words to that effect? Yeah, that's
Beautiful.
good.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Madam President. Impartiality interests on 5.5.2, the Community Grant Program, and 5.5.3, the Homegrown Hero Awards. I know most of the people involved in both of those.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Dickinson.
Just a correction for my impartiality. I am not a member of the Alcoa Harvey Sustainability Fund, but the rest of it is correct. And also I would like to declare an additional impartiality for 5.5.3 because some of the nominees are known to me in the 2025 Homegrown Heroes Awards. So impartiality, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Are there any more? I shall give mine. I have sent these through, but for the record, impartiality interest for 5.3.3, the adoption of the Shire of Harvey and Dardanup Joint Town Planning Scheme minutes, as I am the Shire of Harvey rep and chair of that committee. 5.5.3, the 2025 Homegrown Heroes Awards, as I'm the current council rep on the advisory group and I know several of the nominees. 5.5.2, the Shire of Harvey Community Grant Award, as I am chair of the Alcoa Harvey Sustainability Fund Committee. And 5.3.1, the Local Biodiversity Strategy, as I'm the council rep and chair of that working group. If there's any more councillors as we work through the agenda. Councillor Dickinson.
Could I please add impartiality for the Dardanup Harvey
Joint Town Planning Scheme?
I forgot that one.
5.3.3. Noted. All right, thank you, councillors. We'll move on to deputations, and I'd like to invite Rowan Morrison, who's representing the Harvey Benja Cricket Club. Welcome, Rowan.
That one? I'm on? All right, we're live. Fantastic. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm referring to item 5.2.1 about the Harvey Oval redevelopment, and I've had the opportunity to talk to a few people here about this before. I sent an email on behalf of the cricket club just recently, this week, which was quite long, so I thought I'd try and summarise it down into a couple of key points that really stand out to us as the cricket club. The first part that I'd like to cover is the overwhelming support that we have for the redevelopment work that's being done at the Harvey Rec ground, and especially the drainage improvements. I think it's quite obvious that that's something that needs to go ahead, that we're very supportive of going ahead. We've been involved in consultation from the beginning of the project. We support the idea of multiple user groups coming across, including soccer. So soccer coming in to that space is something that we're really supportive of. We see the benefit of that for the Harvey Rec ground into the future. So yeah, overwhelmingly supportive. However, I do want to highlight a part that we don't support of what's being put forward, which is full separation of the playing surfaces for cricket and for football. So from the Harvey Benja Cricket Club perspective, that full separation would compromise the cricket playing surface to a point that we don't feel is acceptable for our club. It would compromise the size of the playing surface so that it wouldn't meet the local regulations for the Bunbury District Cricket Association. The wicket location would need to move quite a distance away from where the current facility is. So the recently, I'm going to call it still recently built boundary facility at the Harvey Rec ground there is perfectly located, or very well located, for where the pitch is. If it were to move far enough to facilitate full separation, we feel that it would detract from that overall facility. You know, it's a multi-million-dollar facility built very recently. To take away from that would be pretty heartbreaking for our club as a primary user within that group. We think it would also have a potential negative impact for representative cricket. We've had several different representative groups come down and use that Harvey facility, and every time it's remarked by everyone that comes there what an amazing facility and an amazing wicket that is there. We just this season had the CEO of the Western Australian Cricket Association come down and was blown away, super impressed by what we've got. And we believe that we could position that building, that location, for women's Western Australian or WACA level games. That's our intent as a club, is to try and push for women's cricket in Harvey. It's also why we included the photo in there of our women's grand final. That was an amazing day, incredibly well represented, and that's a side of cricket that I'm passionate about, that our club is passionate about, and that we really want to try and push forward with that building, with that location. The other thing for us that we could see is with the redevelopment, we will lose playing time. We accept that there will be a loss of playing time to make the redevelopment happen. Our concern is that it would be up to 2 seasons of loss. That's a pretty big impact for a small club in a small town. That is something that we accept would be part of the redevelopment for the benefits that we get. But if the redevelopment goes ahead, we lose 2 seasons of playing and we get a negative outcome in terms of how far the wicket moves away and our ground getting smaller. We don't feel that that's fair or representative of our club. So when it comes to item 5.2.1, really what we're looking for is some recognition that the 2 separate playing surfaces isn't yet the preferred solution. We felt that within that item, it's pushing down that pathway, and basically we don't agree with it. That's something that we would like further consultation on. We understand that a decision needs to be made about where these grounds will go, but I guess I'm standing here talking to you to say we don't support full separation for those reasons that I've outlined. We believe that there is a solution that can be put forward with minimal overlap, that there will be less overlap than there is now with the full redevelopment. We think that's a positive solution. We think that overlap isn't that much of a concern when you have 2 sports that play in opposite seasons to one another. So football and cricket, there's a very small period of training within pre-season where games might be played at not exactly the same time, but at close times. We believe that there are solutions such as sleeved goalposts that might be able to be easily removable. You end up with much smaller overlap. You don't interact with each other for the majority of both seasons, and we still get the full benefit of what's being put forward with getting soccer into that space. that's the main thing that we'd like, is basically consideration to the separation of the ovals, for that to be captured within item 5.2.1 in the report, and for further consultation as it goes forward to be involved in what a solution looks like, because we think it's good, we want to be part of it. So thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Morrison. Are there any questions of Mr Morrison? Councillor Bromham.
Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation. I was just wondering, there's two things. One, how much smaller are we talking about when we talk about oval size? Because I'm not a cricket player, I need to understand that.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Bronham. The current size that we would run to is around about a 67 metre boundary. The minimum within the Bunbury District Cricket Association regulations, and for the more representative cricket, is 65. It's talking about going to a 60 metre boundary. So it's an appreciable change, but also one, like I said, that might impact those representative type carnivals or games that we would really be liking to try and push, given the attention that we've gotten from the WACA and others.
And another question, if I may, through the chair. I understand you have an issue with the boundary in relation to the cricket pitch if it was moved. Yeah, and I just wondered, was that because people in the boundary that use the kitchen, that type of thing, can't see the game?
Yeah, that's right. So the full separation proposal, the outline that we've seen of that, would be a movement of the wicket by slightly over 40 metres to the north. It takes it to almost at the edge of where the current boundary of the oval is. All of our volunteers are set up on the southern side of the boundary facility. So the kitchen, all the change rooms, the main space for that is on the southern side. The wicket is currently on the southern side of where the boundary is. An alternative proposal that we'd put forward would see us move north. We have to move north if you want to minimise that crossover, but we're proposing something in the region of 25 to 30 metres rather than 42 or 43, just because it takes it that much further. We're also going east. We accept that we've got to go east a little bit for it to happen. It's just taking us so far away and from where the volunteers really do most of their work. That's part of our concern as well.
Okay, so if I may, through the chair, if we came to a solution where we actually could run a camera and a large TV screen, which gave the people working in the kitchen probably better observation than they'd have normally, would that help some of your issues?
Yeah, we do run a video setup at the moment, so we have a live streaming service for our games. We do play that within the facility, but we certainly feel that the live action version is a much better way to absorb sport than through the video screens. I know that's my belief as a sports player and sports lover, that being able to see, if you've got the roll-offs out there watching their son play on a Saturday, they're volunteering in the kitchen. I think it's much better for them to be able to absorb that live rather than indirectly through the screen.
Councillor Caprigrego.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Just one question. How much consultation has the Harvey Benja Cricket Club done with the football club? Because there's been numerous deputations from the cricket club, but I'm yet to see anyone from the Harvey Bulls Football Club come and speak on behalf of this topic.
There's been a few different meetings between cricket and football. I wouldn't say that it's been overwhelmingly consistent communication, but there have been meetings between the two groups. I think that there is always going to be some degree of difference in opinion, that there is a benefit to, or perceived benefit to, the football club of having that full separation. There's a perceived detriment to the cricket club in having full separation, so there is naturally a space there where we can't get everything we want. From the cricket club's side, our concern is that we end up with something not playable, lose 2 seasons. Basically, we lose everything to facilitate this happening, or lose more than what we perceive to be fair. That's why we keep coming forward to do these deputations, because we care. We really care about the club, we care about our season. We want something that's going to be really great for Harvey, but we also don't want it to have it be overly detrimental to our season, to our club.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Morrison. You're welcome to stay and listen to any questions that councillors may have of staff as we move forward in the agenda.
No, that would be great. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, we'll move through to the officers' reports. The Chief Executive Officer 5.1.1, which is the lease agreement with Harvey Community Resource Centre. Are there any questions, councillors, in relation to this one? Councillor Coleman?
Thanks, Madam President. I'm just wondering why we would have removed, in the original lease, there was the agreement that if they were to move into the precinct, that they would surrender their lease. And I'm just wondering why, given, although we've got stage 1 funding, given the magnitude of the size of the scale of it, why would we take that out of their lease rather than leave it in there? Because there's no detriment to leaving it in there, but there's every advantage if we can find room for them in the new precinct sooner rather than later.
Through to...
Thanks, through the chair. It may have been an oversight by us, and I can look into that. Apart from that, I'd have to take it on notice. I don't believe there's any reason why we would take it out. Perhaps if there is a reason, we can report that back to you and maybe propose an amendment or an addendum to the report.
Fabulous, thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Item 5.1.2, deed of extension for the Harvey Aboriginal Corporation. Councillor Dickinson?
Yes, I was just wondering why this was only a 1 year, not a 5-year lease proposed.
Through to... William?
Yes, through the chair. So this is just a deed of extension, and the head lease expires next year. Because of the short timeframes on this lease, we have previously taken the extensions to council, and so we were doing the same again. In speaking with Amanda, our leases and contracts officer, she suggested that the appropriate time to do a full head lease extension would be on expiry in 2026.
Councillor Bromham, you had a question or no? Are there any other questions, councillors? I'll move on to item 5.1.3, management agreement for the Harvey Community Play and Learning Centre. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Coleman.
I had a similar question. Why only 2 years? Is it because it's just an extension?
Sure, through the chair. So this isn't a lease agreement, but a management agreement. So they don't have exclusivity over the premises, and our local law, I believe, allows us to permit licences for a 1 year or 2 year term. Yeah.
No other questions, councillors? Okay, 5.1.4, deed of extension for the Harvey District's Creative Arts Centre Incorporated. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Dickinson?
Yes, I was just wondering, because previously when this lease was being negotiated, there was quite a bit of discussion with the groups, and so I was just wondering whether everything had been resolved and everything's now satisfactory with the user groups.
Through the chair, there's been no issue from a lease perspective, and we did confirm with them that they were happy to only extend the option term for 1 year. I don't think that's an indication of any negativity or anything like that, but yeah, we've not heard anything.
I have a question in regards to their previous lease. Did that cover the church or the use of the church? And is that included in this lease? And if not, if they wish to use the church, then they have to go through the hire process. Is that correct?
Yes, all of what you've said is correct. It's no longer part of their lease, and if they want to use it, it's the same as any other user group using that facility. I think there was a council resolution that provided that we allow them to use it perhaps at a discounted rate for 2 sessions a year or something like that. And that was through the community development team a number of years ago. As far as I'm aware, they have taken up that opportunity at least once. Nothing else.
Any other questions, councillors? Thank you. We'll move on to item 5.1.5, request to leave elected member vacancy held by Councillor Michelle Boyland, unfilled until the ordinary election in October 2025. Any questions around that one, councillors? Thank you. Move on to infrastructure services, item 5. Did you have a question, Councillor Coleman?
Oh, no, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Councillor Holly. If you could step out, Councillor Holly, in regards to this one. Sorry. The CEO whispering in my ear and I thought, oh, that's okay. Okay. Thank you. Item 5.2.1, the Harvey Oval redevelopment. Councillors, are there some questions around this one? I'm going to start at this end with Councillor Capra-Gregor and we'll move around the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I've got a question for staff mainly, and that is the Harvey Benja Cricket Club have raised some concerns. But one of the concerns that I have is, and I'd like to ask a question about, is has Shire staff convened a meeting between the two clubs to get the opinions of both clubs? The reason for this is that I'm concerned that we make a decision and then a week later we're going to have another deputation of complaints. So have we had that meeting between staff, the Benja Cricket Club, the Harvey Bulls Cricket Club, over the shared use of the oval or the possible separation of the ovals? Have we had that meeting?
Mr. Faber.
Through the chair, there has been previous meetings held with the clubs to I guess have conversations around the possible scenarios, and we have had I guess feedback from both clubs on what they believe would be best suited to them. I guess one of the things that you mentioned about making the decision today on the separation, this item's not actually looking to do that. This item's actually about getting staff and the consultant permission to continue the project and remove the note that was part of the Sport and Rec plan that said that we had to deliver the drainage first before we consider optimisation. The plan after, if council was to support that, was to meet with the clubs, and the presentation that I gave at the council forum on the last page, councillors might remember that the next stage as it had there was to go and talk to the clubs. So there's never been an intention or a decision made on what that separation currently looks like. The consultant was asked as part of their brief to look at what separation would entail, and that's what they've complied with, and that was presented to council and shown to council. But staff have not at this stage presented anything to council to make a decision on whether there's full separation or there's an alternative. The plan was to, after tonight's decision, to go back to the clubs and have that discussion. I had arranged for the consultant to come down towards the end of this month to present the drainage design principles and also to start those conversations. So just for council's knowledge, this item is not about looking at separation of the grounds. We still need to have those conversations, and we're more than open to have them with the cricket club and the football club to determine what is the best outcome. And the intent would be, after we have those conversations, to bring another item back to council with a recommendation saying this is the proposal that is supported by officers, and then council can make a decision on whether that full optimisation was uptaken or not. The reason that this is being put forward is at the moment we would have to complete the project in 2 separable portions, which is just not economically viable or, in my opinion, effective to do that. So if we were just to try and solve the drainage and not think about what the optimisation looks like, and if we need to extend grounds, we need to do that all at one time. Otherwise, we're going to come back and potentially put more impact on the clubs.
Follow-up question. So I'm just trying to get my head around this. So we're not going to be engaging a consultant to do any works on the separation until we meet with the clubs, is that correct?
Well, the consultant, part of their brief...
Apart from the drainage,
Yeah.
sorry, apart from the drainage.
Well, the consultant, the next stage would be is to go back to the clubs if we can move forward with the optimisation as the drainage seen as one project to allow staff to do that. So it would be then discussions with the clubs about what is the optimisation, what their preferences would be, and then from that staff would bring something back to council with a recommendation going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bromham.
Thank you. I'm just looking at part of the argument was the size of the cricket ground, and I just wondered if we were going to get some feedback on the normal sizes of cricket grounds in relation to what is used, because I'm looking at it here, and the Sydney cricket ground is 156 metres one way and 154 the other. So, I mean, that's an international cricket ground. So I'm just wondering, are we actually, putting horses with horses in relation to that?
Through the chair, we do take all of that into account. Football fields are traditionally all over the place. Some are longer and thinner, some are shorter and wider. So part of that consideration when we look at the optimisation would be to look at what, the clubs would like to see, and then moving forward, what's, most practical to be able to achieve to try to get a result for all of them. So part of that's been considered. At the moment, we haven't shared any distances with the general public about those lengths of ovals. At the moment, the actual proposal doesn't have any lengths on it. They've just said that to get separation, we need to build an oval this size, and then you basically can have a separation between the two. So it's still all up for negotiation about what the final dimensions will be on any of those sizes.
Thank you.
Any other, Councillor Coleman?
Yeah, thank you. I must apologise because I'm not sure I've got my head around this properly. Point 3 says of the recommendation, endorses the implementation of a combined drainage and playing services planning and project delivery. So I read that as if we accept this, we endorse the current plan of separation of ovals, etc. If we're not doing that, again, apologies for this, what are you actually recommending that you're asking council to do here?
Through the chair, the wording planning and delivery is what we've put forward. So it allows us to plan them as a combined, but then ultimately to be able to deliver them as a combined project. So rather than having two separable portions, one about optimisation and one about drainage, we believe that they need to be considered together to get the best outcome. So going forward, the recommendation is saying it's allowing staff to continue to look at the optimisation through planning and then ultimately deliver together as a one project.
So, again, my apologies if I haven't got my head around this. Would it not be more prudent to get the clubs together and develop an agreed plan before we go through to the drainage, which we know we're going to do anyway?
Through the chair, that's the intent of this item, to allow us to continue that process. And as I indicated earlier, the next stage will be to talk to the clubs and to have those conversations about the optimisation, to work out what is possible, and then to go from there to present council with a recommendation going forward.
I'm just wondering if we might change the wording of item number 3, because the way I read it is that we're endorsing it to be implemented as is. So perhaps we might have a review that. Just asking the question. Thank you.
Through the chair, we can definitely do that. And look, I'd just like to apologise. A couple of lines in there saying we were going to consult probably would have taken away a lot of angst from the community. So I apologise to the cricket club and those others. I've spoken to a couple today. going forward, it's just something I guess that I'll learn from and hopefully get it right the next time.
Oh, listen, it's a challenging project moving forward, Mr. Faber. So, yeah, that was just one of the issues that I had to, and maybe we can tweak that a bit, and we can also include, about bringing a further report back to council when we've done that stakeholder consultation. We can add something along those words as well for next week. But no, any other questions, councillors? Okay, and then that will also, Mr. Morrison's email mentioned something about cricket nets and the shed and all that sort of stuff. So that would also be part of what the consultant would look at once he's done. We've got the drainage plan where we can fit in nets and sheds and the like.
Through the chair, the intent is not to move the nets or the shed. They
Okay.
can remain in place.
Yep.
So that's part of the conversations going forward, and also just to discuss, which I have had a brief conversation with the cricket club about, or one of the members of the cricket club about what they would need as far as being able to organise to have that time away from the oval. So that's all part of it. There's fairly large logistics involved in this. And the comment from the cricket club about the 2 seasons, we're trying to minimise that impact to only be 1 season. And I guess we'll work with them to try to minimise that.
And there's also many other stakeholders. We're also talking about the Harvey Ag Society, the soccer clubs, the whole lot. So, but we will get there. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions, councillors? No, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Faber. We better get Mr. Holly back in. If someone could... Councillor Holly, sorry. Welcome back, Councillor Holly. 5.3, Sustainable Development. 5.3.1, the Local Biodiversity Strategy, the final adoption. Any questions around this one, councillors? Councillor Bromham.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the actions in relation to this and our goals, and most of the time it says educate and collaborate. I'm wondering who's delivering that, because it's going to take a fair bit of staff time just looking at the document.
I'd imagine it come through part of our council plan, but Mr. Patlin, over to you.
Through the chair. Yeah, look, the primary contact for all of the biodiversity strategy will be our environmental officer and working with the community groups, relevant community groups, but also planning staff with some of the work staff, the park staff, where we can engage. It's meant to be a living document, and the engagement is supposed to be rolled out over the life of the strategy.
Councillor Bromham.
Just a supplementary question to that. One of the problems I have with this is there's a lot of planting of trees goes on, and being in the Bushfire Brigade, we rock up at different places and they've been planted, but there's been no follow-up. So you just end up with lots of dead trees. So I'm just wanting to make sure that if we're going to do this, that, how are we going to ensure that we fund it in a way that allows sustainable planting?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I think that's something that we can work on with the works team to make sure that when we do, or when community groups, or we do plant trees, that there's a plan to follow up, either by the community group or by the Shire.
Okay, item 5.3.2, which is the Local Planning Strategy Amendment number 1 to Lot 102, number 160 Taranto Road, Milup. I've actually asked Mr. Patlin if he could just give us a bit of a rundown on this, because I've not been involved with a development investigation area before. So if you could just give us I use the term Soldiers 5, so 5 minutes just to give us a rundown on what this is all about.
Through the chair. Yeah, so this is, I suppose, not something I've come across either. But the Commission has taken the planning regulations have been tightened, and there's a far stronger view from the state government that any amendments to a local planning scheme shouldn't be supported, won't be supported, unless they're consistent with a local planning strategy. So the only way that the developers here can even look at this site or for a proposed change is to amend the local planning strategy to allow it to be looked at. So the view of the Shire staff is we understand the concerns that have been raised by the state government agencies. We understand that there are significant constraints on the site. Let's let the developer demonstrate to the Shire how they are going to address these concerns, how any development of the site can address all of the concerns raised in the submissions, and preferably provide a beneficial environmental outcome, positive outcome for community and for the environment, given that it's quite degraded through some of the unauthorised access that's currently occurring.
Any questions around this one? Councillor Capragrego.
Yeah, thank you. Reading through the application and all the comments made by all the different departments, I see that there's some serious concerns with the Water Corporation and also with main roads. And I can sort of, looking ahead, I can think we're going to be spinning a lot of wheels here and spending a lot of staff hours. Is there any way that we can go back to the developer and say, look, you need to get these people on side because they are seriously concerned and doesn't look like they're going to budge before we burn endless hours with the developer to try and get this through?
Through the chair, that's the intent. It's up to the developer to address Main Road's concerns. It's quite interesting that Main Roads are saying they won't support it when they don't know what's there or what's even proposed, the extent of what the developer is proposing. But we believe that the developer has a very, very high mountain to climb with this. They're going to have to put a huge amount of effort into this to demonstrate to council that they have met and addressed these concerns, and as far as possible, got these agencies to agree to support their proposals.
Okay, thank you. I'll be interested to see what the officer's recommendation is on this one.
Mr Putland, that in that key matters list that it addresses the TECs well enough in there? I mean, it sort of says protection of environmental and biodiversity values. I mean, that's pretty broad. Do we need to flesh it out a bit and, you know, with the TECs and the black cockatoos, ringtail possums, that sort of stuff? Or do you think that broad statement, protection of environmental and biodiversity values, will cover that area?
Through the chair, I don't think it would harm putting more detail in there. We could add an including and be specific to threatened flora fauna that we know are present in that area. Yeah.
All right, any other questions, councillors? Councillor Dickinson.
Yes, thank you. I noticed that in the Main Roads submission against the proposal, they mentioned that they're against upgrading of Taranto Road. So I'm just wondering, for future development that goes on between Mile Up and also Binning Up, would this, because they're saying, yeah, they don't want to upgrade Taranto Road, but would this put more pressure on the Shire for for a significant roading upgrades in the area? And in particular, we've identified access, you know, a second access for those town sites. So I'm just wondering how that would be managed and accommodated.
Spring Hill Road's is another one, isn't it, with that 5/8 development? Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair. Look, there is a push for the coastal road. It's not just, we're looking at that expansion south of Binningham and the potential extension of Spring Hill Road onto an intersection where main roads don't want any additional traffic. So we have the Shire's facing those issues with both towns expanding and and intersections onto a main road. Eventually, well, this might be a catalyst along with bidding up to actually get main roads to either improve the intersections or for the state government to provide more support for a coastal road. But the developers will have to again address those issues. How do they address the concerns with the capacity of Taranto Road? You know, how do you get additional traffic volumes in and out of Mile Up safely and across onto the Forest Highway?
Any other questions, councillor Bromman?
Yeah, I'm looking at the similarity between our coastal strip and that running between Mandurah and Rockingham. And this seems to be exactly what's happened along that coastal strip over the last 20 or 30 years. So I'm wondering, what was the lessons learnt from that, and are we having a look at that to actually ensure we don't make similar mistakes?
Through the chair, look, any coastal areas are under increasing pressure. I think the first of the bidding up structure plans was done in 2010. I think I did it. Oops. But there was a huge amount of pressure then from developers through it, Mile Up, bidding up the coastal strip. At the time, the state government was quite adamant that area shouldn't be developed. But the population has grown so quickly, much more rapidly than anyone expected, and developers are seeing more potential now for land release. I don't think we can, I think we should learn in that that strip shouldn't be fully developed, but there might be a form of development that can lead to a better outcome. I'd suggest that if it's not a good outcome, then ultimately, once the information's forward, then it shouldn't be supported. My professional view anyway.
Thank you very much.
Okay, no further questions, councillors. I'll move on to item, I think we're up to 5.3.3, the adoption of the Shire of Harvey and Dardanup Joint Town Planning Scheme minutes. Any questions? No. I'll move on to corporate services, item 5.4.1, payments for April 2025. Councillor Dickinson, did you have any other questions?
I just had 3 questions. My first one is in relation to payment 76689 road safety audit for Courage Cup and Parkfield Primary School. I was just wondering if I could have clarification on that, please.
Through the chair, I can provide some information on that. The Courage Cup safety audit was done because the project was a black spot funded project. So as part of those requirements, we undertake a safety audit. The Parkfield Primary we've been in conversation with the school and other parties in relation to safety concerns with the interaction with school children leaving and entering the school and vehicles. So we undertook a safety audit of that. I've got a meeting tomorrow with Bike West to discuss those outcomes and to look at potentially what we would need to do to implement some of those recommendations to try and improve that environment.
Thank you. My second question was 76698 Burgess Rawson Harvey Station Harper Street rent and water usage. I was just wondering what that was in regards to, please.
Sure. Through the chair, so there's an annual small fee for the license arrangement with the railway reserve, and we are required to reimburse them for water at that site as well.
What do they actually do?
Sorry, so Burgess Rawson is the legal firm that represents ARC infrastructure, and they collect the monies from us. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a better clarification. And my last one was 6823, camera for counting visitors to the libraries. I was just wondering how that information is going to be used, please.
Through the chair, thank you. It helps to provide statistics to councillors around library visitation. So it was an upgrade of the manual door counter system.
I think that was broken at some stage, wasn't it? So, yeah, okay. Any other questions, councillors, in regards to payments? 5.4.2, financial statement as at the 30th of April 2025. Any questions, councillors? (5.4.3) proposed fees and charges for 25-26. Do we have some questions? Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Madam President. Just wondering, I note that it's proposed fees and charges without landfill or waste. When will we get the landfill and waste charges?
Thank you. Through you, Madam President. We're still working on the implications around the Bunbury-Harvey Regional Council and things as they work out there, with an item coming to Council hopefully in June in relation to that. That's going to buy us a little bit more time to derive the fees and charges that are required, rather than taking a best guess and maybe leaving ourselves a bit short. We do have the time to up our sleeve to adopt the fees and charges for rubbish with the actual budget, so they don't have to be adopted at this stage. The advantage of adopting the other fees and charges as you have them before you here is to allow those, specifically like the Leisure Not Leisure Centre, to start imposing those new fees from the 1st of July, where the rubbish fees and charges will typically happen after or when we raise rates.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? All good, thank you. We'll move on to 5.5, community and lifestyle. We have 5.5.1, the alternative delivery models for library services. Progress report. Any questions, councillors? I just have a couple in regards to Yar Loop. It says in the report that there's a lack of support, if you like, from the CRC, and my understanding was we were looking at the CRC because this current location at the school, they wanted to use that facility. So is that still the case? And if we were to move to the CRC, they have suggested they want some compensation. So what would that compensation look like?
Thank you for the question. So there's two parts to your question, I think, from what I gather. So the first one, sorry, Madam Chair, the first one again was...
we have been working with the Yar Loop CRC and they don't wish to undertake the Yar Loop library, so...
The last conversations we've had with them, they were keen, but they wanted to wait until their lease negotiations come up and then have a look at that. So at that time, we were proposing just to put the pop-up, as in like picture the checkout thingies at Coles, that kind of machine, you put it in there with several shelves of books, and people can access that service. So at that time, that was a proposal. However, since the last report went to council, the number of people have increased using the Yar Loop library itself, and it makes sense to move the library into the facility because there's a lot more room, and secondly, the location. So we're seeing families come through the library, but not the older demographics. And we think that's because of where the library is located at the moment, and that should go to the CRC. So we've had those discussions with them, they sort of, they're not quite sure because the lease negotiations are still ongoing. But when I spoke to them, they were saying, oh, there's no room in there because they're using all the rooms currently for other programs. In my professional opinion, I think there's lots of room in there. It's just a matter of us having a bit of a chat to them and see where we can work together on that one.
So is there an issue with the lease with the Yarloop CRC? Because we've been negotiating for a while with them over the lease, have we, or?
I'd have to take that on notice.
Okay.
I don't believe there are any issues with the lease as it stands, no.
Okay. Councillor Coleman?
Madam President, that was going to be my question. If the lease was due in December 24, here we are 5 months later, nearly 6 months later. Why is it not signed and sealed, and why can we not move forward on this project?
I'll have to take that on notice, thanks.
Righty. And part 3 of the recommendations support the expansion of pop-up library services to other appropriate locations. So what other locations are you looking at?
Thank you for the question. Say Marlup, for example, they don't have a library there. We can certainly look at putting a pop-up in there. I know Cookinup's got a little book exchange, I think, from what I know, but with maybe expanding that and just putting that pop-up machine in there. I think the importance of this is because the pop-up machine allows you to access up to 100,000 books, because we use that software where people can go in and then access those books using that software. So that's the beauty of the pop-up, and it's also sustainable because if it's set up in an operational facility, it just operates by itself. Obviously, staff will have to go in and change the books around, etc. But it's a cost-effective and sustainable model for those locations that don't have the library.
The Junio first and then Councillor Coleman.
I think just clarification. So when you say they can access the books, you're meaning download the books rather than getting the physical books. Is that correct?
Both. So you can access the books by going in there, bring up your card, put a hold on the book, physical book, and then we can deliver the book to that location. Second, you can access via e-resources where you could see the same card, but you don't necessarily have to go in there to use it. That's something you can hook up for the website. So you can access both ways. But what we're finding is that access is what's limited, because they may have a book exchange, but say 100 books in there. But if you have the machine in there, you have access to 100,000 books. And there's a lot more choice for customers. Yeah.
And what do we know what the funding implication is for that, to have something like that for, let's say, Cookinup?
At the moment, we had a quote for the machine itself to install and put it in there. It's about 10 grand. And then on top of that, there's a subscription fee of about 500. So those figures were a couple of months ago. I'm suspecting that will increase given the cost of living and all that. So it might even increase. But those are the estimates we got. Yeah.
Councillor Coleman?
Thanks, Madam President. Thank you. Two things. Those costs that you just mentioned, are they costs that are passed on to, for example, the CRC, or are they borne by council? Are they under the greater library resource? So that's my first question.
Okay. So that's currently the Yarloop Library has its own budget item. We suspect that will be used to move the library where it is to the CRC. So there's no cost to the CRC that's already covered with the budget as it stands right now. So I think the budget at the moment is about 30 grand for Yarloop, because we have staff there that looks after the library. So if we were to move the full library into the CRC, I suspect there'll be the same budget roundabout.
Thank you. So it becomes our budgeted item, not, it's not a cost to a CRC per se?
No.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. The other thing is, I'm wondering if, there's probably other people like me, I thought a pop-up library was like a pop-up shop that you have for the pop-up surveys and things. So I'm wondering whether anybody else realises that a pop-up library is not just a little machine, or is just a little machine, it's not a big pop-up shop.
Yeah, my apologies, maybe it's the use of words. Pop-up is quite used in the eastern states, and that's the model it looked. I acknowledge that. I even look at it myself and thought, oh, far out, you know, I'm probably confusing people as well. But we use that terminology because there were statistics that backed up that model in the eastern states. However, if I was my personal opinion, it would be like something like a library nook. It makes a lot more sense to our community and what it means. And I would say a library nook.
And that certainly wasn't a criticism at
No,
all.
no, no.
It was just really not explained that a
Yeah,
pop-up is
yeah.
not the pop-up shops that we're used to when we do surveys, you know, that sort of thing.
No,
So
thank you. I acknowledge
understand
that.
it.
Yeah. No
And I
worries.
suppose so we do have to move the library from the current location. It's got to go somewhere. Is that correct?
That's our proposal at the moment. It's currently working where it is.
Yeah, I know it's working, but I
Yeah.
thought the school wanted to utilise that space.
did.
So is that still the case? Or
Yes.
the school?
Yeah, our preference is to move it, subject to the lease negotiations with the CRC, because we acknowledge that that's where the CRC are based at the moment. And I'm sorry, I'm not an expert on that area, but my assumption would be if they agree, we go in there, move the whole library in there and operate out of there, because I also understand the lease at the school is about to expire soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, while we were through the chair, while I was just sitting here, just in relation to Councillor Coleman's question about the lease. So it would seem that some of the stalling on the lease, and we've been in contact with them for about 9 months, were concerns into maintaining the building. So the current lease provisions require them to do external pest control, garden beds, cleaning of windows, gutter cleaning and that sort of thing, and they lacked the ability within the CRC to be able to maintain those items. So we've been negotiating on that. However, on the 14th, the committee had indicated that they were happy with the draft lease. So I'm guessing that the presumption is that it would go to a meeting probably before the end of financial year. So yeah, sorry I couldn't answer at the time. I just had to go through the notes.
Councillor Bromham.
Just for clarification, really. So the library where it is at the present time is in the primary school, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So to me, you know, what we're inviting the general public into a primary school, was a risk assessment done on that? Well,
It's been there for a very long time at the school, I think. Yeah, so, yeah. And I'm sure it was an arrangement between, we haven't just gone in there, it's been an arrangement between the Education Department and the Shire, so, yeah. Any other questions, councillors? Okay, thank you, Lainey.
Thank you.
We'll move on to 5.5.2, the Shire of Harvey Community Grant Program 2025. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Coleman, yep, and then Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you. The Binning Up Community Garden, I noticed that $50,000 is to be awarded, the recommendation, $50,000 to be awarded this financial year and $50,000 to be awarded next financial year. So are we suggesting that we're preempting next year's grant round and approving it in advance?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. No, the council can make the decision to approve or not approve the $50,000 this year. But it's a recommendation of the committee that that $50,000 be included in next year's budget for council's consideration.
Through the chair, I would note that this has been the case that was applied to the Harvey Golf Club. They actually had a funding allocation through the Alcoa Harvey Sustainability Fund with an in-principle support through the committee at the time for consideration in the next year's funding round. So that will be considered by the committee next year and go through the processes as outlined by the director.
Councillor Coleman.
Just a question then, would it perhaps be more prudent to say that $50,000 to be considered in the 26-27 financial year rather than awarded?
Yes, we can definitely look at the wording that so that it's consistent with what's happened in previous years.
Councillor Bronwyn. Councillor Holly.
Just on that one, but we're still only going to be voting on the 50,000, aren't we?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, for this budget. I did have a question that I raised with the director in regards, just to make sure because I was never good at maths, the funding amount. So did we get the opportunity to have a look at that?
Through the chair, yes, we did. So the maximum amount for the community grant round that can be awarded is the 450,000. There is also a notional amount for partnerships of 200,000. So the community grants round has been undersubscribed, but if council chooses to resolve the officer's recommendation regarding partnerships, then we will be oversubscribed in the partnerships area. So, yes, you're right, that the 450 doesn't actually include the partnerships grants.
Yeah, Councillor Coleman. Sorry, I was just looking at my notes here because I thought I had something here.
No, that's okay. I just was seeking clarification on this. I thought I had read in the grant guidelines that if you applied for a grant in one area, you couldn't apply in a second area. However, that Binnyup one that I was just talking about, the skate park hub, also seems to have applied in the coastal one. Now, I thought our guidelines suggested if you applied for one, you didn't apply for the other. Can I just get a clarification on that, please?
I believe that the grant guidelines refer to the Shire's community grant round funding pool, not in relation to the Alcoa Harvey Sustainability Fund or the Coastal Community Fund, which have agreements in place with other partners through those funding rounds.
Whilst Councillor Carboni's not here, I'll raise it on his behalf. Yeah, I just want to get my head around the application by the Brunswick Ag Society for their kitchen. So when I look on the Forward Capital Works, there is some funding allocated in 27-28 for Brunswick Rec Grounds Community Facility Development. So I just want to get, can anyone tell me what that is for? It's year 27-28, but there's some funding there, and I just wanted to find out what that was actually for, if it's for the kitchen or not. And I know that Councillor Carboni indicated when we did the workshop that the Brunswick Ag Society had identified a considerable amount of money towards this particular project. So they're obviously very keen, but my understanding is that there are infrastructure issues around putting in an industrial kitchen, or commercial kitchen, I should say, in regards to plumbing and everything else. So there's lots of investigative work that would need to be done before this, if this was to be approved.
That's correct, Madam President, and the panel felt that there hadn't been the adequate amount of planning that had gone into that project yet to be able to address all of those issues that would need to be addressed.
So my follow-up then is, we will liaise with the Ag Society, say, acknowledge what you want to achieve there, but you have to tick a few more boxes before it becomes viable for us to consider?
Yes, that's the intention.
Okay. Councillor Bromham.
Yeah, thank you. In regard to that particular issue, I'm thinking about the lease arrangement at that particular time. No, there's no lease on that particular building, so anything we build there would actually become the property of council. So I'm wondering how that's going to work.
Through the chair. So we've been progressing lease discussions with the Brunswick Ag Society for a number of months, and I actually have a confirmed meeting with them next Thursday to progress that. So I'd envision by the time we got to a kitchen that we might include that as part of the lease.
Thank you. I'm relieved.
Thanks, Madam President. Just checking, because the Harvey Community Gala Night is fabulous and almost necessary in town. The organisation is listed as the Harvey Community Gala Night Committee. Now, my understanding is they're not an incorporated association, so are they being auspiced by somebody?
Well, I do know that they were auspiced by the Harvey Lions last year, so maybe we could get Amani to confirm that.
Through the chair, thank you for your question. Yes, you are correct. It is. They are being auspiced like they were last year, and it is through the Harvey Lions. Yeah. Thank you.
Alrighty, Councillor Dickinson.
Could I have staff's confirmation that the proposals put forward by the Brunswick Agricultural Society, they weren't identified or discussed in the master plan development of the Brunswick Rec Grounds, were they? Or were they?
Confirming just in regards to the kitchen?
So the kitchen at the Murray Piggott Members Pavilion, and also the inclusive toilets for that area as well.
Through the chair, if I can, I'll take that on notice. There is some mention in the master plan, but I'd have to refer back to it and just clarify.
Right, councillors, any other questions? Councillor Capra-Gregor.
Just got a quick question. I noticed that there's a request for $5,000 grant, the Community Events Grant, for the Bunbury West Australian Rugby Union for the Bunbury NAIDOC Sevens tournament. How is that part of our shire? How does that fall into our shire grant funding?
Mr. Ben.
Through the President, that club is located at LLC. That's where their base is, so they just call themselves Bunbury.
Oh, okay.
So most of the members
are from our shire.
Yeah, well, not all, but most.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, it would have been good if it was called the Leschenol, or something like that. So we actually, people that in the public, that once the grants get sorted and publicised, they'll say, why is Harvey Shire providing something to Bunbury? Because it's not clarified in there, it's all.
Alrighty, any other questions, councillors? I'll move on to item 5.5.3. If there are any questions in relation to nominations, then I'll take it to behind closed doors. So are there any questions in regards to this one, councillors? No, all good? And I look forward to seeing all councillors there on the evening. I think we've got a date. Where's Trish?
We have
26th of June. So there'll be something coming out Thursday. Thank you. Lovely. Thank you.
4 days after my birthday.
All right, we'll move on to notice of motions for the following meeting. I've got such an important one here, to become a Shire of Harvey owl friendly. There we go, we can read about that one. And Councillor Coleman has one in relation to the Harvey Community Precinct. Alrighty, there are some items here that are behind closed doors. Are there any questions in relation to these items, councillors? No need to go behind closed doors? No? Alrighty.
Just on that, please, Madam President, where was the notice of motion? Oh, it's not on now, sorry.
Good,
Councillor
Councillor
Holly,
Holly.
those two notices of motion were received in time for inclusion in the council agenda. They weren't received prior to the agenda briefing document, so they're not actually included in the document. They're just on the screen, but will be included in the next agenda.
Councillors, just please note that there are a number of reports. So at the OCM, we will try and do some en bloc and see if we can get it right this time. We'll get it done. So we'll just work through that next week. Alrighty. Are there any other questions, councillors? Councillor Coleman?
If you have a look at the en bloc, is there any chance you could send
Yes, I
even
will.
24 hours notice?
Yeah,
So that,
yeah,
okay, thank you.
yeah. That's my plan, I hope. Yeah, no worries. All right, councillors, staff, all happy? I declare the